listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What's up, and welcome along to the Straight to Video podcast. How's everyone been doing? On today's show, I spoke to a guy who, whilst being based out in Germany, he truly kept the flag of Sunset Strip hard rock flying proud during the late 1990s and early 2000s, when that style of music really was hard to come by. Alexx Michael relaunched his old band Shameless with the help of Kiss drummer Eric Singer, who had become a good friend through numerous Kiss conventions all over Europe, which allowed the Shameless records to boast one of the finest collections of Hollywood hard rock legends on their new recordings. Alexx is someone who has always been on my radar for the past 15 or 20 years or so through his work with Shameless, and we have a bunch of mutual friends, but we've never had the chance to speak, so it was really cool to get together and talk all about his early years growing up in Germany, the unique and innocent way that how when we're kids we see and translate certain things in a very specific way, and we talk about the early days with Shameless from their first show through to Alex's other passion, which has been putting together an all-encompassing coffee table book about the classic car, the DeLorean, you know, the one you see in Back to the Future. Entitled Looking Inside, this incredible book will be available from March next year, but pre-orders begin this month and you can find out all about it over at DeLoreanbook.org. If you want to get your hands on any of the Shameless music and merch, then that can be found at shamelessrock.com, and a new Shameless album is in the pipeline with some really special guests on board. Alexx and I had a great time chatting about Kiss, the band Tough, who Alexx has a great connection to, and the incredible DeLorean story. So I hope you guys enjoy listening in. Here's my straight to video chat with Alexx Michael. Can you take us back to where you grew up? We're speaking now from Germany. Are you from, is it like the same place you grew up?
Like 45 minutes away from where I grew up.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in Munich and then, I moved around, but like always somewhere in the circle. Cause like for most part, like between like 95 and whenever, like I was just like always traveling, going here, going there, then you're like in the States, then here. And so like, it didn't even matter to me, like where I was living, because I was just like never home.
No, you just needed a base to come back to.
Yeah, well, all my stuff was, so like it was, but other than that, it was like, wherever it takes you,
At what point did you become a music fan then? Was you pretty young when kind of music hit you?
I was about like 3 or 4.
Right?
Yeah, because it was Christmas and my aunt, she gave my dad a Elvis Presley Live at the Madison Square Garden record. And I was like, what the hell is that? And my dad, he didn't like it at all. And I was like, this is unbelievable.
Was it the music or the actual visual of the album?
There was nothing really on the cover. It's just like that. What is the cover? Like, I think it's just a photo of him, with the guitar. And that was pretty much it. So like, I didn't see any of it. It was just like the music, and I was like, wow, this is so much better than the stupid music they play for you like at kindergarten. And that pretty much like that got me into music. And it was a few years later, I was like 7, I think like a week or something after Elvis died.
Right.
And then my dad, he was switching around on the TV. And all of a sudden there was Kiss on TV.
Right.
And I was like, what is that? Because like the only thing I knew back then was like Elvis and Batman comics. So this was pretty much like a combination of Elvis and Batman. I was like, wow, this is incredible. Then I got hooked. And the funny thing for me still is like, okay, Elvis was different because like I never really saw him. Because I mean, like in the 70s in Germany, there was no Elvis on TV or anything like that. Maybe like when he died, there was something on, but like other than that, you didn't see Elvis on TV. Also, he was not that popular anymore in the 70s. So, and then like I got into Kiss, and from that, I also discovered the Beatles. And then my next discovery was Girl School.
Wow. You're just like grabbing these random things.
Yeah. Well, I also think, for TV, because like this was like 2 years later in 80 or something. And the funny thing still to me is because like, I knew Kiss, you had 4 guys that was singing. You had the Beatles. You also had 4 guys. Then you had Girls' School. And then Motley Crue came, and I was like, and I saw them, and I was like, what a shit band. Only one of them can sing. What is wrong with those people? And I was like, but like the record actually sounds cool, but like I didn't get it at that point, like, because it was like, why is there only one person singing? What happened to the other guys?
You thought if you was a band, you had to be like multi-instrumentalist. You're allowed to sing, you're allowed to play, yeah.
Yeah, Kiss and Beatles, it just always made the music so much more interesting. Instead of having one singer that goes to the record that like you have, Gene, Paul, Ace and Peter, George, Paul, Ringo. So it took me a while to get used to that, because then the more I was looking around, I was like, okay, I get it. Like also that band, like there's only one. I guess like most of the bands only have one singer.
Where did you hear Motley Crue then? Where was that being played in Germany?
I didn't hear them the first time. I saw like a picture of them in the, there was this European or German teeny magazine called Bravo. And they were, the article said something like Kiss imposters.
Right.
And I was like, okay, yeah. And then also the thinking like Kiss imposters, but why is there a blonde one in there? Then I went to a store and listened to Shout at the Devil. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Because like there was nothing like that before. And I'm also honest, like I never got into like a lot of those other like rock bands. I still to this day, I don't have a Led Zeppelin record.
No.
And AC/DC, like I bought the Highway to Hell record, but like other than that, it was just always, I was always missing the variety of the music.
Yeah.
Because like there's like some really cool AC/DC songs, but my guitar player at some point gave me like a collection of like 15 records. And I was like, okay, let's listen to them. And I was traveling somewhere. And then like after like 3 records, I was like, I don't even know where I am anymore. Because like everything sounds the same except for like when they had a different singer.
Yeah. That's the thing with AC/DC, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. Which I guess to a certain point is cool because, like, a lot of people, like, they don't like changes. They don't like to go from, like in the case of Kiss, from like Destroyer to music from The Elder.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like even like when you read or when you talk to Kiss, like Kiss fans that were like real early fans in like 74, 75. And for them, it was already a massive change going from Hotter Than Hell to Destroyer.
Yeah.
And for me, that just always makes it much more interesting, when there's like some variation instead of just like, like your AC/DC Manowar kind of stuff where it's always the same. I mean, like, but then on the other hand, like, if you go to McDonald's and you want a Big Mac, you always want it to taste the same. So I get the point, but it's just not.
That's a really cool way of looking at it, to be honest. So what was your first Kiss album?
The first one was Alive 2.
Okay. You had something to go back through as well and do all the early albums as well.
Oh, yeah, because like after I saw that thing on TV, I went to the store with my grandfather and said, like, oh my God, I need to buy this record. And I had no idea, it's like, okay, I know the name of the band is Kiss and they were Makeup. So walked into the store and then like asked the guy, I need the Kiss record. And he was like, what? Which one? And then like he shows me the stack because also the solo records came out. And I was like, wow, how many records do they have? And then I was like, okay, where do you start? And then like I opened up the gatefold for Live 2 and I was like, okay, no, gotta buy that.
You got Gene with all the blood and all sweaty and all that kind of stuff, looking badass.
I was like, this is incredible. I mean, like, how can a band look and sound like this? Because especially in Germany, where a lot of people were just like oof-da-da music and stuff like that. And you had your typical like pop music and then like the music for the girls. I remember like there was a couple of bands like Racy and the Teens and whatever. It was just like more like kids music. It sounded like it was made for like 5 to 7-year-old kids. Yeah. And I was like, no, that doesn't make me happy.
Was your friends into Kiss and all that kind of stuff, or was you kind of the gateway for them? Kind of you got to listen to this band?
Oh yeah, it was interesting because like especially in school, like all the other kids, they had no idea because most of them were still listening to like like kid stuff, like those storybooks.
Mm-hmm.
And at school, at the end of the school year, we had this like day where everybody would bring a record.
Oh God!
I know, like I wish I would have that on tape or like on video because all the other kids had like, this. Okay, I don't know the English word for those like cartoons, like Pumuckl and just like weird like German cartoon stuff. And then I was like, okay, because this was like a few months later, so I had Love Gun. And then, like, the teacher, she also was an old woman, so she had no idea what that is. It was like, oh. And she looks at like love gun. And also she was not the English teacher. So obviously she didn't understand English and didn't know what a love gun was. I put it on and then like she looked at me like, whoa. And it was pretty much like in one of those movies, the Detroit Rock City movie, where you got sent to the principal. Yeah. And the principal was like, also, oh, how are you even able like to have a record like this? Blah, 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 blah. We need to talk to your parents at this. And then they sent my parents a letter in regards to that and saying like, like you have to make sure like he doesn't get a chance to listen to that music because it will have like, it could ruin his whole future.
Tell me you still have a copy of that letter somewhere. That would be amazing.
No, sadly, because like at that point, like your parents had to sign that letter and give it back. But I wish so bad I would have that letter, because it's just like, yeah, it really had like an evil influence on me.
This is where it all began, framed on your wall.
This is where I ended up. I mean, like...
So at what point did you get to see any bands in the flesh? Did any concerts come through town?
Yeah, pretty much right after that, because like Kiss was on the Unmasked tour in 1980. And the original dates were supposed to be like in May. So I got the tickets for my 10th birthday. But then like the day after my birthday, the tour got canceled because like, they got rid of Peter Criss. And then they rescheduled the shows for September and we went there. And this was also like, it was so funny because my parents never went to a concert before. My dad went once to like a James Last concert. So, and like when the music was playing, before the band starts, it's obviously at a lower level. And I asked him, is that the volume that they're playing at? And he was like, yeah, if I remember correctly from the James Last concert, like that's the volume that they play at. And then, the lights went out and like, all right. And my parents pretty much, they dropped dead. And I was like, yeah, this is how music is supposed to be, not on some low volume.
Like blown to the back of the wall or something like that. You could imagine it. Like, holy shit.
Then the funny thing in regarding of early concerts was like just a month later or something, there was also like because at that point, the only way to find out which concerts would happen was like the local newspaper. And then you see those ads in the beginning. So, and then there was this ad that said like Rush with very special guest Girls' School. And I was like, oh my God, like Girls' School is playing. And then, okay, well, what does that mean was the very special guest? And then my mother said like, well, if they're a very special guest, that means like they're like the main attraction of the whole thing. And my dad had no idea. And obviously anyone else I knew at that point, like, other kids in school, they were like, well, if it's a special guest, yeah, that sounds like, I even asked the music teacher, but like for whatever reason, the music teacher was never at a concert. That should just tells you, if you're a music teacher and you've never been to a concert, you fail, go home and like teach how to, make shoes or like, how to feed elephants, something like that. But don't be a music teacher. So then I got the ticket and then obviously the lights goes out and then Girls' School plays. And after like 25 minutes, poof, good night. Okay, I guess, special guest doesn't really mean anything. It's just like, you're the opening band.
And this was for Rush, right?
Yeah, so I saw Rush in 1981 and like, I had no idea who they were and I didn't know any of the songs. And I was like, why is there only like 3 people on stage? That's pretty lame.
It's the same thing as like you put in, like, we think every band should be a singer. You think every band should have 4 people. Now there's just 3 people on stage. Like, where's the other guy? Where is he?
Exactly. They must have forgotten him somewhere. Because like, it was just like, it looked so weird, like to only have like 3 people on stage. And I was like, why is this like, why? Because at that point I didn't know Motorhead or any of that kind of stuff. But I was always like, like 4 people, should be on stage, because that's how Kiss and the Beatles do it. So why would anyone think in a different way? That doesn't make any sense.
I love it. It's great how your mind works when you're a kid. It's awesome.
You just have a different point of view and think like, what if that band does like that, then like probably everybody else should do it like that.
So from then, at what point did you consider like picking up an instrument?
I had a first attempt of doing it when I was like 11, because at that point we had guitar lessons in school. So I got an acoustic guitar because that was like, on the list of no electric guitar. It has to be like an acoustic one. And then I spent like a year. And I couldn't play shit after 1 year. It was just like those stupid like scales and I was like, what's even the point of that? Mm-hmm. I gave up for like 2 years. And then, no, actually it was like more. It was like 3 years. And then the Kiss Animalized, the live video came out from Detroit 84. So this was obviously VHS. And I looked at the video and I was like, no, wait a second. I can see what they're doing. This looks so easy. Where's that guitar? So I got that guitar out and I knew how to tune a guitar. So that wasn't even the issue. So I got the guitar, tune it, and I was like, okay. What is he playing? And then I wrote it down.
Just seeing like the power chords and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And within like a month, I was able to play every song of that video.
That's crazy.
Why did I spend like a year on that stupid school thing where I didn't learn anything? And then and from that point on, then I went to the buying those guitar player magazines from the States, because they always would sell them at the train station in Munich. And they had all the tabs in there, like, like how to learn, what was one of the first ones? It was, God, I don't remember. I think it was a Poison song.
Great way to start. You'll be playing straight away.
Exactly. And it was like, okay, this is not as bad as I thought. This is actually easy, because then within like 6 months or something, I was able to play a lot of stuff, like the songs and everything. And I was like, okay. And then pretty much right afterwards, I was like, okay, no, but like just playing that stuff like that, for me, it didn't make any sense to learn other people's material. I was like, now, if I want to do something, then I have to write my own stuff, because like otherwise, so how do I do that? And then I was just like really like almost like, like writing it down. Okay, pretty much every song has a starting and this, you have to do this and that, and like just make sure that like, and then I just started to write songs. And like the first song I ever wrote was Backseat Action.
Nice.
Which later ended up on the record. I mean, my guitar player at the point, he changed the verse of it, because like the original verse was like pretty terrible. And then I just like from that point on, like I just, I wrote instead of like learning other people. But yeah, on the other hand, like, that's the reason why I missed out on like, like those typical like jam sessions, because I was never, if you ask me, like I know obviously like some of the Kiss songs, because like when I switched from guitar to bass and then like bringing back Poison for me was like the worst example about any of that stuff, because Bobby Dahl was just like ding, 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 ding. I was like, that is so fucking lame. And then, you listen to like old 50s stuff and 60s, 70s stuff where the bass was like doing stuff.
You've been listening to the Beatles, you've been listening to Paul McCartney doing all that crazy stuff.
Like one major record was one of Jerry Lee Lewis' record, like an old one, and then obviously like the Kiss stuff, like Love Gun and...
Yeah. Well, Gene had all that kind of traditional playing.
He was a killer. I mean, he still is. Like, all the stuff that he's playing is not boring. And, like, especially compared to, like, a lot of the 80s bass players. Because it was just like, we need a bass player because, like, everybody has one. But, like, there was just nothing interesting going on there. And then also, but, like, on the other hand, like, with the bass players, then you had those other ones that were, like, overplaying stuff. Yeah. Like, let's play a guitar solo on a bass. And I was always like, no, that doesn't... It's just the wrong instrument.
It's finding that middle ground. Hold it down, but then just finding little pockets to do stuff.
Do something and make it interesting, but like don't try to be like a guitar player on a bass. I mean, of course, there are certain bands where that works out, but like, especially for our stuff, no. It's like a couple of years ago when we did that cover of the Billy Ocean song, like Get Out of My Dreams. And then also somebody was like made a comment about like, like you should play. But I was like, no, because it's like there's so much going on was the guitars and especially the vocals, because when you have Frankie doing vocals, it's not like, like just like la la la. He's all over the place and it works. But then to have another instrument that competes with that, it's like, no.
Just gets muddled and mushy and stuff like that. It's just not worth it.
When you see bands recording, it doesn't even matter on which level. They always have that holy rule, like, oh, now first you have to record the drums and then bass and then guitar and then the vocals and then the guitar solos. I mean, we did that on the first 2 records, but since that, I record the drums first with a scratch guitar. Then we record the vocals. Mm-hmm. I don't want the vocals to suffer because of like some stupid guitar riff, so we always do like drums and a scratch guitar and then do the vocals, and then like the guitar player has to be like, okay, you listen to the vocals and don't play over that, because to me the vocals and the melody is always like the main thing about a song, because Robin Crosby said that like nobody ever bought a song because of a guitar solo, except for like
Van Halen 1, maybe.
Yeah, but it was also, with Van Halen, like it was also like the whole combination, because like his guitars, like is, like the songs made it even greater. If it would have just been like Eddie noodling, for like 4 minutes, like a Vinnie Vincent kind of like crazy trip or something, that wouldn't work with Van Halen. It was like he wrote the songs so he could, and then he was just like playing the best he could for each song. Mm-hmm. That's what made it so great. Instead of like some of those guitar guys that are just like killing it, like the Malmsteen and like whatever their names are. It's like, I cannot even listen to that. Like, I'd rather listen to Village People than like, like a guitar player noodling for like 2 hours and you're like, okay, what was that?
I had a conversation a few weeks ago with somebody saying David Lee Roth is like underrated for how he was managed to find melodies and lyrics over the Van Halen stuff. It was very clever to make it work within that format.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. I mean, like, there is, you have to be able to fit your vocals into that stuff. It's just like, it's not easy. And I think you have to a lot, with like those guitar players that think like, oh, there needs to be guitars everywhere, mm-hmm. Like 15 layers of this and that and here and there. And the people that I work with, like, they know I want the guitars there, but I don't go for the, let's put like 20 different layers of shit on there. And then like somewhere in the background, there's like a singer.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I will not mention the band's name, but I was just like listening to this band. And every couple of months, they release a new song. And they're pretty new, like from the last couple of years. And the thing is, like, the music is so, like really well produced. But then the vocals, it always sounds like, oh, fuck, we forgot something. What was it? Oh, yeah, you get get some cheeseburgers. And in the meantime, you have our singer do some vocals. There's no effect on nothing on the vocals. But like everything else, like you have the magic tricks on the drums and this and that and everything. And like, let's do an expensive video. But then, like, nobody gave a fuck about, like, how to record the vocals.
Wow.
Like, God, somebody needs to tell those people, because it's just, like, and then, like, because for me, it's always, like, you listen to a song, and then when it's over, what do you remember from it?
It's all the melody on the hook of the chorus and the...
Exactly, and then, like, when you listen to a song, it's like, okay, I remember, like, there was, like, some people in that video that had outfits, like, in Planet of the Apes. But like, what do you remember about the song? Nothing. That's the worst thing, like when you listen to something and like, I don't know what was going on here.
So how was it for you putting the first incarnation of Shameless together? Because was that 1989?
Yeah, it was 89. Well, the drum and I, we went to the same school. So that was easy. And then a friend of mine had a friend that was a guitar player. And then the search began for a singer. And God, I don't even know. Somebody told me about this other guy that lived like 40 minutes away from Munich. So we traveled there and met up with no, bullshit. He was playing a show with that band.
Right.
And the band was horrible. And I told him, like, look, your band sucks, like, I can tell you don't even like that music. And he was like, yeah, you're right. But like, gave me some stupid excuse. And I said, like, okay, look, we don't even have a demo, but like, why don't you after that show come with me. We go to rehearsal so you can listen to it and check it out. And don't forget, this was like in the middle of the night.
Right.
So I called the other guys, the guitar player and the drummer. I said, like, look, let's meet at the rehearsal space at like, it seems like 2 a.m. And the others go, okay, yeah, but like you have to drive us back. Cause I was the only guy in the band that actually had a driver's license. So we went to the rehearsal, and played. And he came up with like some of the lyrics.
You're working on original stuff straight from the get-go rather than like blasting through some covers.
Well, the first show we did, because we auditioned the guy and it was clear, okay, we use him. And then our guitar player had this gig lined up like 2 days later. But we only had like 3 songs at that point. And then we did, what was it? Like we did 2 Faster Pussycat songs also. So we had like 3 original songs and like we did 2 covers of Faster Pussycat. Because we're like, hey, as long as we get out and like people here probably don't even know Faster Pussycat, so it doesn't even matter. So yeah, and then we did that. And then from that point on, we did shows and, here and there.
What's the story that you used a tough demo tape to actually get gigs because you didn't actually have your own demo tape?
No, yeah, that's exactly what happened. We were like, okay, we want to play shows. And okay, in order to play shows, you have to have a demo. We're like, okay, like where do we record a demo? So I called a couple of the studios. I was like, how much, what's the average, like what do you have to pay? And like the guys told me those numbers and I was like, okay, we don't have money for that. That's impossible. So I went on a trip to the UK and at Shades Record, the guy that worked there, we were talking and he was like, oh, have you heard of this band called Tough? And I was like, no. And he played the songs for me. I was like, oh my God, this is great. So I love the song. So like on the way back, I was thinking, you know what? Like nobody knows that band because this was like, like 100 years before the internet. So I told the other guys, why don't we use that demo just to get those gigs? And then once we play the first couple of shows, then we can record our songs and then we're set. But like otherwise you wouldn't get into the door.
It's one of the coolest things I've heard because it's actually really clever. We kind of sound like this band, so let's use this band's demo tape to get our gig.
Funny enough, like 10 years later, the singer of Tough is the singer in Shameless, so that's like, it's just crazy, but there was no other way because also we were like pretty much just starting. So like it would have taken forever, like to record something and like, at that point, it was so expensive, and like none of us had any jobs. We were pretty much like the guitar player and the drummer were still living with their parents. And I was the only one that had a job. But I said, like, look, I have to pay for my car and this and that. I can pay for the full thing,
You don't remember what songs were on that Tough demo, do you? Was it some stuff that actually made the album?
No, it was Summertime Goodbye, Round 'Em Up, and then, there was one other song. You Want Trouble was the other one.
So good. I would imagine you told Stevie that story when you guys became friends.
The first time I met him, like I told him the story, and he was laughing his ass off. But back then, was no internet and like there was no internet, no options or anything,
How did you guys actually meet? Was it once the internet got started, you managed to hook up?
I was with Eric Singer, like doing some Kiss conventions. And Eric said like he knew some people that worked with Stevie on other stuff. And I said, call him. And then like, yeah. So Eric called him and said like, I have this guy here like that wants to do the record, and he wants you to sing on it. Because at that point, there was no Tough. Because like Tough broke up like a couple of years before that. And it was actually funny because like Stevie was so away from the whole like rock thing. Because I remember like one of the first discussions we had, he was like, yeah, but I don't want to do any heavy songs with, electric guitars or
right.
And I was like, that's why he sang like, the ballad and then like one other song and the Beatles cover on the record because he didn't want to do heavier stuff.
Because he kind of went into the singer-songwritery kind of thing for a while.
I mean, like those solo records, they were actually pretty good. I liked them. It was different, but, like I said, like you cannot always do the same thing over and over again because it just gets to the point where like, ugh.
Did you become like a massive fan of that whole kind of scene from like the late 80s, early 90s? Was you kind of picking up as much stuff as you could?
A lot of it, but then there was like so many bands I was never able to get into because like I see it on Facebook now all the time where people like worship pretty much all of those bands. And for me, the biggest disappointment was like, especially with like Motley Crue and Poison and stuff, like you knew the singers, but then like what was that God, what was that record? Girls, Girls, Girls. You know, like the first thing you saw on TV was Wild Side. Oh no, it was Girls, 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 and then like Wild Side. I was like, wow, this is great. And so you buy the record, and then like there's so many like really terrible songs on it. Like, I mean, I don't even remember some of the titles, but like you must know. Like
I was never a massive Motley Crue fan other than I knew the singles. And
no, cause especially with Motley Crue. I mean, like the first two records, they were so incredible. You know, like Too Fast and Shout. But then like when they hit like Theater of Pain and Girls, 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 I was just like, oh my God, this is so fucking terrible. They look so great, but then the music that comes out. The one band that always stood out to me was Red.
Yeah.
Because when they did records, like each one, like, I mean, they never had the, oh, I love you, I miss you ballad kind of stuff, but that was the great thing. Like, there was no ballads, and it was just like, it was so good. Like, you know, like they had really unique songs, and still to this day, there's no other band from the 80s that sounds like Red.
Who else do you think is like a pretty underrated band from that era? Because I think you mentioned you're a big Electric Angels fan.
Oh yeah, that record was incredible. That is such a incredible, yeah, like that one, and then, because I also was a lot into like the other stuff. Like I always loved The Knack,
yeah,
which was not metal at all, you know. And then which bands did I like the most? I mean, like I remember Britney Fox, I thought was incredible. And obviously like Cinderella. And still to this day, I will never understand when people say like that Poison and Cinderella sounded the same. That's like saying like a dog is the same thing as a truck. You know, it's like, it just doesn't go together. And Wasp was incredible.
Yeah.
Because like Wasp is like, still to this day, like that's the ultimate highway music. Like that, there's nothing that can compare to Wasp, because it's straight ahead, you know, like in your face, you know, Blind in Texas, and you can't top that.
So how was it for you in Shameless when you started playing in Germany? Was it easy to find gigs or an audience for that style of music?
When the original band started, actually it was pretty easy, because like there was nobody else there that did that kind of music.
No.
The first real show we did, we rented this club, because for the club scene there was no booking agents or anything. It was not like in LA that like you had to go, you know, find those people and this and that. It was just like, okay, you go to the venue, give them your demo, and then they're like, okay, yeah, you can hire the place.
Right.
So that was pretty much it. And I remember, because we had no idea like how many people would come, but like the one thing I picked up from like looking at the stuff that was happening in LA was the flyer thing.
Right.
And nobody else really did that. So then I figured out, you know, because I came from the comic thing and stuff, you know, when people like tease people like what's in the next issue,
right,
but you don't know what's going on. So what we did, we booked the show, and then the first weekend we went out and to those clubs, and we had those flyers, and it didn't say a name or anything. It only said like, lock up your daughters. Nothing else. That was the only thing. And then the next weekend we went out, and everybody was talking about that. Like, what does that mean? You know, like it was just a date and lock up your daughters. And we were just like, well, we don't know. We have no idea.
You were just fueling it.
Exactly. And I was just we all were pretty sure just like laughing. So I'm like, oh my God, like everybody talks about it. This is perfect. And then the weekend after, that's when we started like, you know, with the flyers everywhere. Like we went to every rock club and like all the cars and whatever. We put them on there like at the end. You couldn't bring them inside, because obviously like the clubs will get pissed if you advertise some other venue.
Right.
But just the parking lot and everything was fine. And then the day of the show came, and we were like, oh my God, let's hope there's like 50 people coming. So we don't lose money, because we don't have money. So we did the sound check and everything, and then we started to get ready. And at some point I told the brother of our guitar player, hey, can you check out if there's already like people outside? And then we get ready, and then like after like 40 minutes, like, where the hell is he? Where did he go? Then like 10, 15 minutes afterwards, he comes back, and we're like, you idiot, where have you been? Did you fall asleep or something? He was like, no, I couldn't get back in. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, don't you hear? Like the whole place is packed, and there's people outside that can't get in.
Amazing.
There's a line around the building. And we're like, yeah, good joke. And he was like, no, look. And then he opened the door, because this was like obviously behind the stage. You had to walk to the thing there. It was almost like Spinal Tap. And like, yeah, the place was packed. They were like, holy shit, this is insane. But then it was pretty much here, because like there was nobody else like that would look and sound like we did. And nobody else ever did that thing before, like was the teasing the people, was like, what could that mean?
Yeah.
So that was fun, and we even had like a Spinal Tap moment at that show, because like they told us the way to get to the stage. There was the dressing room and there was the set of stairs, and it was like this middle level thing, because like the dressing room was in between. So we walk up. And then all of a sudden, we're like in the bedroom of the cleaning people. And they were sleeping. Because guitar player turns the light on. It's like, what the fuck are we? And then this, Turkish or whatever, like family, they were just like looking at us. Get down.
It has to happen at some point. That version of Shameless kind of ended around 91, and you started back up in the late 90s. Was you doing any music during that time?
At that point, first I tried to find other people. We actually had a singer from the UK here for a couple of months, but then that didn't work out either. And then, with the whole grunge thing. And then I joined my guitar player's old band. So we did a couple of shows with them. It didn't really go anywhere anymore, because it was just like Germany and that kind of music, it doesn't really go together, because people just don't have the attitude for it and they don't know what to do. And especially in the mid 90s, there was space for that. And then I only started to think about it when I did that tour with Eric Singer, because he was like, oh, you wanted to hear some of the stuff. And he was like, wow, this is great. You got to do something with it, but don't do it in Germany. And that's how the whole thing started.
Oh, that's awesome. So Eric was the kind of spark that ignited it back again.
Yeah, pretty much. He was the guy that said, you got to do this,
So was you doing all the KISS conventions during that time? Was that when all that kind of began?
Yeah, exactly. Because we were traveling all over Europe, doing those conventions everywhere from Czech Republic to Germany, Denmark, UK. Pretty much we've done them everywhere, with Ace and Peter, Vinny, and, Bruce, Eric, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. At that point, did you have the vision of, say, let's call it a hard rock supergroup to get all different players on there?
Somebody came up with that thing in one of the magazines, and then more and more magazines came up with that thing, Austin then, because I didn't do the Wikipedia thing. That must have been somebody else at some point. So that was never even my thought.
No?
My thought was I would actually prefer it, to have singers switch, because in the beginning I didn't even think about going on tour or anything. It was just hey, let's do this record but have different people on. So it's like a KISS or a Beatles record. That's how the whole thing started.
That's kind of cool. It's almost full circle with your original childhood view of music. That's pretty smart.
But I always loved it, especially on the songs that two people sing together, shout it out loud, stuff like that, or from the Beatles, Ticket to Ride, stuff like that. It's so much more interesting.
How easy or difficult was it when putting the word out to get all these different players on the record? Was it through your connections you'd made through the conventions and stuff like that?
No, that was just through Eric pretty much. Because Eric introduced me, obviously, to Stevie and Steve, and then we did the record at Gilby's, and then Tracy Guns was there one day because they were working on something with LA Guns. I was like, well, hey, we still have a couple of guitar solos that we have to figure out. And he was like, well, let me do it. I have time. And he just nailed pretty much everything in a half an hour.
How was that for you coming from Germany, seeing all this massive explosion of these bands in the late 80s and early 90s, and all of a sudden this door opens and you've got all these guys willing to be on your record? That must have been pretty cool.
No, it was great, especially, because back then, in Germany, I still don't understand why people come up with shit like that, because they're like, oh yeah, no, those guys in LA, they can't play and everything. And the funny thing is, Tracy's the best example. There is no guitar player in Germany that would be even close to play like Tracy, except for Michael Schenker, But just last week, we watched this old thing about that Monsters of Rock tour in the States with Van Halen and Scorpions, Kingdom Come, and a couple of other ones. And when you see interviews of the Scorpions, for example, God, they talk like they're like businessmen at an office. The way they talk about music is well, and then we have to focus on the blah, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so fucking typical, and you sound like a teacher, and then you go on stage, dress up in a way that somebody told you, okay, you need that kind of outfit and this and that, and you have to have your hair like this and whatever, and that's just how it sounds to me. And I never got that point where it's this is more like work or something, you're working at whatever office, and somebody somebody tells you have to dress like this. That happened to like so many bands in Germany. If you think about it, except how great were they, when they had like Udo Dirkschneider in the band. And then just because like somebody from a record label tells them, oh, you need to sound more like a band from the States. Now let's get you a singer that doesn't have any kind of personality. Then you all get some weird earrings and fancy clothes like all the other band members wear. And then you look like an American band, and then like people will buy it because you look like Poison, and it's like, that doesn't work if you have something so unique. And they're like, oh no, I have to sound like everybody else. I guess there was always like a big thing in the music industry, because I'm sure you know Kate Bush. And like at some point, Pat Benatar did a cover of one of her songs. And that's like turning something so unbelievable into elevator music. We love that song, but we want to make it sound like it belongs in an elevator or like in a toilet factory. And that's like in Germany, like a lot of those bands. Do you remember like the old Hit Parader magazine?
Oh God, yeah.
And remember on the back of it, there was always this advertisement that says like, dress like a rock star. And I saw so many bands, including like at some point Pretty Maids from Denmark. And all those bands, they ordered their clothes there.
Yeah. So everyone's the same.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, even in the States, they had that at some point where like Red and Van Halen and Kiss, all the outfits were made by the same people.
Yeah.
I remember like there was a picture in a magazine of the drummer in Red, and it said it's Ozzy Osbourne.
Wow.
There was an Ozzy Osbourne interview, but like the interview had a picture of the drummer in Rat, because you could tell, because like he had a drumstick in his hand, but like, no, that must be Ozzy Osbourne because he looks like him.
No one had a clue anymore because everyone looked exactly the same.
Exactly, it's bad.
So what's the current situation with Shameless then? There's been a few teaser clips with various people, and you've mentioned a few names who you're working with. Is there a new record in the works?
We have all the music done except for like 2 solos, but Tracy was so busy the last few weeks. At the moment, he's traveling between Denmark and the States all the time, and then like did this online show, was it yesterday? But we have this record is more like I always wanted to do like a cover record, But then when it came to the point of like doing the songs, I was like, what should I do with all the songs that I wrote now? So now it's more a mix of covers. We do like 7 or 8 covers, but then still have like, I think like 5 original songs on it.
So you're doing that, and you're also currently getting ready to release a brand new book called Looking Inside, all about the DeLorean car.
Yeah.
When and where did your fascination with such an iconic vehicle begin?
That was pretty much when I saw the article about Ace Frehley getting arrested because of like, going crazy in one of them.
And when was that?
This was like 83. Because before that, I was never really into cars, because it was just like always music for me in Batman comics. And then I saw the car, I was like, what the hell is that? That doesn't even look like a car. And the first time I saw this was also in that Bravo magazine. I thought it was from a photo shoot or something, that it was a prop, like, when Gene had the Dragon or whatever. And so they thought, let's build a rocket ship that looks like a car and put it next to Ace Frehley. So, and that's how my interest started. And it's always funny because like I know so many DeLorean owners, and 90% of them got into the car because of Back to the Future. I haven't seen Back to the Future until like at some point in the 90s. Because like I was always spending my money on like, buying stuff and like, buying equipment and stuff. So I never went to a movie theater.
No.
Sometimes you watched VHS tapes or whatever, but I just never was at that point like a big, like, let's watch this, let's watch that. So I never saw Back to the Future until like, it was like 94, 95. I knew the poster of the movie, because that was everywhere when the movie came out. But like when you look at the poster of the first movie, you don't really see that that's a DeLorean.
Right. So you didn't realize it was a big feature of the film.
Exactly. Yeah, I had no idea. And then when I saw the movie, I was like, "Wow, cool!" Like they used that that DeLorean car in the movie, the Ace car. Because that's what it always was for me. And so I was not, so for me it was really about the car and not about it was in Back to the Future.
Right.
It was like, I saw it way later.
Does anything regarding the Ace Frehley thing make it into the book?
Yeah, or there's a little bit also, where I talk about like how I actually got into DeLorean and stuff like that. So there's a little bit about Kiss in it, because obviously that's a big reason how I got into those cars.
Do you have your own DeLorean?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
When did you get that?
A couple of years ago, and I bought it in the States. I always, pretty much like most of my cars, I bought in the States because it's easier to get them there instead of like looking for one that was already here and then like people tried to change stuff. And that's why I'd rather buy the stuff directly where it comes from.
Did it need much restoration or was it in pretty good condition?
It had like some, because like it wasn't really moved for like a long time. And the guy that owned it was like he's still alive because I met him last year. The guy is like 87 or something. So like he only used it like to go in his little town from his house to the mall or something. And then obviously when a car is 40 years old, there's some stuff that just needs to be replaced, like it is with any car, but you only notice those things once you really start to drive the car. The car was only driven like 6,000 miles in the time that he had it.
Right.
And now in like 2 years, I drove it like 3,000.
That's still a pretty low mileage. It's still good.
Yeah, but like you can only drive it like, or like when you have time and then like the weather and everything. Because like when it's like winter and everything, I don't want to drive through the snow, it's like.
What prompted you to put the book together? Because it's got to be such a massive undertaking.
Like the whole thing, because when you look like certain documentaries and stuff where they talk, or like newspapers and stuff, where they talk about like, oh, he used the company, to sell or transport drugs. And the craziest thing is like none of that is true. The government, the US one, they did put a crime together for him so they could have him out of the way. And in the book, there's actually letters that prove that. Because that's the main thing about the book. Because a lot of books, you always have like one guy or like a bunch of guys writing about something. But if somebody writes about something and he wasn't there, that means it's just an opinion.
Right.
So I thought it's way cooler if you have the actual documents showing, well, look, there's this document and like, when they sent like 15 or 12 million to the UK, money had to be approved because it was not like that you bring the money over to your neighbor or something. Especially in those days, in the late 70s, early 80s, it had to be approved from the US government that the money can leave the country. Right. And it had to be approved from the UK government that it can come in. So when later the government said like, oh, we didn't know about any of those payments, it's a lie. And we actually went to the National Archive in the UK, and some of those documents are still hidden until the year 2077.
Wow.
Just because like the UK government was also involved in that whole thing. Because at that point, when they started the DeLorean company, it was a different party. I think Roy Mason, I get the names confused. But then Margaret Thatcher came in, and she didn't want to have any part of like involvement in like, industry and whatever, especially not with a car maker, because like she was like, a bitter old woman that probably never drove a car. The crazy part is like, you would think if it was his fault, they would have released those documents the next day. But if the government decides, okay, we have to lock those documents away for 100 years, that means like they did something.
That's pretty interesting. How hard has it been compiling all the information and like finding copies of all the documents?
I knew somebody that like had pretty much like all those documents, and so that was not that big of a challenge. Right. It was, the main thing was just like to go through everything, because there's like boxes and boxes of documents, and so that took a lot of time. And then like but then there was still stuff like that we found out later, and it's just crazy, but it's like, if you ever have you ever seen the Tucker movie?
I don't think so, no. Is it Dennis Quaid or Jeff Bridges?
No, actually,
it's one of those guys, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Oh, yeah, no, it was Jeff Bridges. Yeah, and that was pretty much the same thing that happened to DeLorean in the early 80s. That happened also to that guy like 40 years earlier. Yeah. Car manufacturers in the US were like, no, we don't want anybody else here, so let's get rid of him.
Wow.
And if you look at the car industry, especially in the, like in Detroit, DeLorean was the guy that changed all of that.
Yeah.
If you look at the cars from like the early, like 40s, 50s, 60s, and then DeLorean came in, like you had the Firebird GTOs and whatever, even the design for the C3 is pretty much what he came up with. So, he probably was not a competition for them like right there, but if he would have had succeed, with the first car, and then like people would be like, hey, that's the guy that, like he's the guy, like he came up with all those other cars, and now that car, it can't rust, it needs less gas, it's safer. so why would we buy another Chevy? Why don't we buy one of those cars?
Yeah.
And so like, I guess they saw that as
a threat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's been the coolest thing about putting the whole project together? Because it looks amazing from what you've previewed, just the whole layout of it. It just really looks stunning. What's been the coolest thing for you?
Pretty much like like doing the research work and then like finding out more stuff about this and that. And it was just like, it was pretty much like, like detective work, like finding out stuff and like going to the National Archive and doing stuff like that. And then like I worked together with Barry Wills, who was also working for the DeLorean company. And he was actually the longest serving employee of the company. And the crazy part was like so many times I would send him something. It's like, take a look at this. And he was like, holy shit, I've never even heard about this.
How did you guys meet?
Well, first we wrote a couple of times on Facebook. And then I met him in Hamburg when there was like a DeLorean get together. And then I told him about the story and like, and showed him some of the stuff. Because like I was doing like a speech there about this stuff. And he also, and then like he was like, God, I need copies of this. Like, where the hell did you get this? Then we just started to work together. And then before I asked Stephen Wynn, he's like the boss of the new DeLorean Motor Company. And he was also right from the spot, like, oh, if you need help or if you need anything, just let me know, call me, whatever. So that was pretty easy because you didn't have to sing, like, oh, you have to find somebody that's in charge and this and that, like it's in other companies. And that also what I think makes that book so unique because like there is no other car or car company where you would be able to get such a look inside. If you look at VW, like you can only read, okay, now whatever tricks they pull off, but like you will never be able to see, hey, this is what went on at that point and stuff.
I would imagine you have quite an extensive collection of DeLorean items.
Yeah.
What's your favorite or most unusual? And is there anything that you're still missing that's eluding you?
Like there's just certain stuff. Like the funny thing for me is that we own the full DeLorean photo archive because there was a photographer from the UK and he took all the photos in the company, for the catalogs, everything between 78 and 82. But then when the British government didn't pay the rest of the money and they went bankrupt, they couldn't pay that guy anymore. So
he just kept them all.
Exactly. They said like, okay, you keep the rights and you can do with those photos whatever you want to do because the company's gone anyway. And then when that guy retired, I somehow got in contact with him and I asked him like, oh, what are you doing with this stuff? He was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, I'll buy it all off from you. So that's how I ended up with like that full archive. And it's like, it's a few thousand photos. And like in today's world, a few thousand photos doesn't sound that much because like all those little girls and guys, when they run around with their cell phone and they're like, it's like sometimes I see people, and they go to concerts and it's like, well, I took like 2,000 photos. Yeah, and only like one of them is kind of like where you're able to figure out what's on the picture. Yeah. But back then, like each photo was a keeper. When we looked like through that archive stuff now, out of those, like, I don't even know how many thousands there are. There was maybe like 3 or 4 photos. And then plus like there was one photo of like this old couple, like at like some party or something. I guess those were some relatives of the photographer. I showed it to Barry. It's like, have you ever seen those people? It's like, no, because they look like they were 90 when that photo was taken. And it was like a huge collection. This was also something, I guess, that just slipped in of like liquor bottles. At some point, the guy must have taken like 20 photos of like liquor bottles, in the cabinet, whatever.
Is there any cool promotional items or anything like that DeLorean did?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like they had all, like the brochures and then like the fancy ones and then like some tie pins, like that they gave employees and like some ties and stuff like that. There's some really cool stuff. And I have a calculator that was used in the company and it still works.
Amazing.
That's the crazy thing. It still works. It's one, the solar battery, the ones that doesn't need a battery. And when I got it, let's see if it works. Press the on button and it still works after like 40 years. So Texas, what is the name of that? Texas company, something is the name of that.
Texas Instruments, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that place.
Amazing, dude. Alex, thank you ever so much, man. I've loved chatting with you. I appreciate you
great.
sharing all the stories, and congratulations on the book and the new Shameless stuff, which is coming together. When's the book actually due out? Because I know it's gone to production.
Yeah, the book is already in the print. I already have like the prototype.
How good does that feel?
Oh, great. I mean, like this one is actually that there's like a couple of things that are still different than from the later book, but it's big and heavy, and like it will be out in March, and then the Shameless record, I think we're still working on a couple of details, because there's like some stuff that, we have to take care of first. But I hope it will be out like in July. But we will release at least one song already like in January or February the latest.
2021 is going to be the year. Forget this year. That's next year's when everything's happening.
Well, this year was like the busiest year I ever had in my life, pretty much. That's like why it was so hard, even to come to the show, because it was just like every day, like 100 things to take care of. And it's like, God, So, but yeah, it's time that the whole thing changes so you don't have to be locked up in your house anymore.
Nice one, dude. Well, you take care.
Yeah, you too.
Speak to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
There he was, Alexx Michael of Shameless. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing his story, and hopefully want to check out his new book, Looking Inside, which you can find out all about over at DeLoreanBook.org, or at the book's Facebook page, which you can find by searching DeLorean in the news, Looking Inside. Thanks to all you lot out there for the continued support of this podcast. I really do appreciate your kind words and messages you continue to send online, either through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find Straight to Video on all those platforms, and thank you for sharing your favorite episodes. Can't wait to speak to you all again, so please take care and we'll chat soon.